This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. Tim, you,
Yes.
me, and Simon are once again scattered across the planet, but
Yes, we are.
What
Yes, we are.
happens?
I'm in. I flew into Miami Beach last night, and I'm staying near South Beach, and I'm just like kind of do a little stroll on this main strip there, and some woman was like, "Hey," I turn around, and her face was totally caved in, gushing blood everywhere, and I'm like, "Holy shit!" Fortunately, there's paramedics around, but that was my welcome to Miami Beach. I mean, it
Well,
was pretty insane. Yeah.
that certainly tops the time Bob Bird almost got killed by a flying coconut, I must say.
Yeah, but it's pretty mellow here right now. This is the off season, and
Right.
it's pretty mellow. Anyhow, so what's up? We got some news stories we want to share with each other.
This is one of the most ridiculous things I've heard in a while. Woman 25 reveals she developed life-threatening sepsis from a wedgie after wearing tight denim shorts on a date and had to spend a week in the ICU. I could have easily died.
A week.
Sam from North Carolina went on an 8-hour date and wore a pair of Daisy Dukes with boy short underwear. So she had been picking at her wedgie, was having fun. She's then developed a bump where the fabric had been chafing and grew increasingly painful over the next few days. It became the worst stabbing pain, and mother had to rush her to the ER where she was admitted, and she had cellulitis, which had turned septic, and the doctors considered operating. Well, needless to say, this genius from North Carolina no longer wears Daisy Dukes after that painful bacterial skin infection. But she was having so much fun on the date. I mean, that's what you get for wearing frickin' Daisy Dukes on your first date. I don't know. Well, she thought they were the coolest shorts ever, and of course, her whole ass was out. What an asshole.
Well, good intentions, as they say. Hell, the road to hell is paved in good intentions.
Yeah, but it's not paved in boys' panties, is it?
No, it isn't. Well, my story, that a man from New Hampshire, there's a burning building, runs in there. I got to take care of this stuff. This guy, Tom Kehoe or something, age 67, goes in there. There's an elderly woman, heroic, has her lifted up in his arms, and then he collapses on the lawn with a heart attack. I mean, he ended up not dying, but sometimes your intentions are good and it just really fucking backfires. Another good intention in the news. Here's my animal story. Well, I have a few good intentions. I'll go before the animal story. So this family right around now, it's the kind of like in Italy, Southern Italy, there's a whole tradition with the families come together. They're making the wine. And it's kind of like this, it's almost equivalent to like a harvest festival, but it's like a wine festival. So they're all in Calabria, this family, and 4 family members die just consecutively. Like the one just keeps on trying to save the other, and they just keep on dying, like this domino effect. Well, the grandfather goes down to the cellar where he went to get the fermented apple or grape juice to bring up, and then they're going to all do a ceremony and put them in barrels, and then this whole process. The whole cellar had just been overtaken by toxic fumes.
Oh wow!
And anyone that went there would just have a few breaths of it, and they were just collapsed.
Was it caused from mold, or what was it caused from?
It wasn't so clear, but it was something about the fermentation. Just it's one of these old kind of like stone cellars, and the fermentation they produced so much that it was just full on toxic.
I guess that's what they call dead drunk.
Well, it's interesting because I asked the other day with Matt Nelson, who has to do wine tastings, but you're not supposed to drink it because you get drunk. You squish it around your mouth, smell it, and spit it out. You still get fucked up. I mean, you're still absorbing that shit. So maybe they basically had alcohol poisoning. It was toxic.
Yeah, well, the other night I almost killed you when you were drunk, so I can understand the fact that a few toxic fumes were coming out of your mouth. And are
you calling yourself a toxic fume? And that's
no, I said they were coming out.
The most deadly thing in the room.
I am the most deadly thing in the room, but the toxic thoughts were coming out of your mouth. That's all right. You're still alive.
I gotta get a recording of this. I need revisionist history. I really do.
You know what? You couldn't even remember what you said as you repeated it the second time. Don't worry about that.
All right. Human race was screaming in tongues, and I had no one could decipher what that was.
Hey, look, you're not the only man who can't decipher when the coven speaks in tongues. Just be happy we didn't stick. But if we would have had both of our tongues in your ears or your mouth, you would have died happy. All right.
That's true.
Where's your rooster story?
Well, I have another really quick one here. So, as you guys probably know, living in the cities, e-scooter accidents are going through the fucking roof, and it keeps on going up. 2017, 34,000 emergencies of just
what
people getting
Are those mopeds?
Yeah, because they're slanted. Everyone's on the sidewalks and they're going fucking fast. People are getting hit. They're wiping out. Then 2018, it's gone up to 44,000. 2019, 55,000.
Just in New York or country?
Country. But it's,
thank you.
50, well, it was New York, 59.
10,000 in each state.
It's a disaster, and there's no one really. And you'll see people like going, like 25 fucking miles an hour down the sidewalk.
Hey, Keckler often drives a moped over here. I don't know. I better warn him to wear his helmet.
No, he should definitely wear a helmet. You don't want that nice brain of his to go to waste. Do you want my animal story? You got another story? I got the quick animal story. So
do it. Pull it out.
Dan Hurst, documentary director, filmmaker, producer. He was making a documentary celebrating the 50-year anniversary of the ban on crocodile hunting in up near Darwin, which is in the what's that region? Northern Territory, I think it's just Northern Territory. It's a very tippity top on the coast of Australia. And so he's doing this whole thing, and we have all these this great preservation, and these animals are thriving. And he's doing an aerial view with a drone, at which point, like a fucking 15-foot crocodile leaps out of the water and wolfs down his fucking drone and camera right there on the spot. So again, good intentions. I don't know. I don't know if the good intentions.
All right, well, let's talk about. I got a story about bad intentions. It has to be discussed, and that's it. I'm going right into it.
Sure.
All right. The independent commission, made up of 22 lawyers, doctors, historians, sociologists, who worked for 2.5 years. They've been listening to victims and witnesses and studying church, court, police, and press archives starting in the 1950s. Now, the 2,500-page landmark report, which was released this week after more than 2 years of investigation by this independent commission, it was France's first major reckoning of the devastating phenomena of the fact that they have counted an estimated 330,000 children victims of sex abuse within France's Catholic Church between 1950 to 2020. An estimated 216,000 abused by priests and other clerics. Now, one guy who, most of these cases are already too old to bring to trial, but one of the guys they talked to, he said who the abuse went on for years. Of course, it damaged him for life. He said it was like a growing cyst, like a gangrene inside my body, inside my psyche. And it was so systemic. I mean, an earthquake, a hurricane, and a tsunami, when you see these numbers, it's so damning that no one can stay in denial, whether it's the Catholic Church or society as a whole. So said Olivier Sauvignon, who came out and is one of the people coming forth. A lot of people have not, 80% of the victims were boys. And they, of course, there's still so much stigma about young boy sexual molestation, but 3,000 so far they've counted criminal pedophiles, 2/3 of them priests, preyed on hundreds of thousands of mainly young boys who were at Catholic schools. And actually the report said that Catholic schools are more dangerous to young boys than any place else they could possibly go to. Now, on Earth, pretty much, other than war, the Pope, of course. I mean, this is like decades of a veil of silence. But then we also have the nuns who were using crucifixes to rape girls look, again, belief in a cruel God makes for cruel men, and in this case, priests and nuns. And that's why I'm very interested in our guest this evening, Sean Carnage, who worked for a very controversial figure in American pornography, Larry Flynt, who, in my opinion, as just a hillbilly out of nowhere, actually stood up. It's a two-fisted kind of conundrum here. Really spoke out for freedom, but still promoted pornography. paid anyone who could report on any religious figures or politicians about the hypocrisy of the sexual deviance they did, had an, I almost said an album cover, but had a magazine cover that has definitely still stands in one of the most controversial, which is both a pro and con statement about how women are treated like meat, a woman in a meat grinder. And he's very controversial, but the same is like that early Playboy that had incredible interviews with all kinds of people, Madeline Marie O'Hare, I mean, Jean Genet. Hustler, again, because at the time pornography was coming up, we'll say the time that, first Playboy, Penthouse, and then Hustler, that there were these characters run by men that, on top of everything, wanted freedom, would pay for it, would illustrate with interviews and articles the hypocrisy of this country. And whether you like pornography or not, and if you don't like it, don't freaking look at it. I mean, now it's, it's everywhere. The pop pornification is everywhere. But this article about this, the pedophilia in the Catholic Church, we're not even, that's only one strain of religious perversity. And I mean, after all, when the main symbol of your religion is a nude and bloody man with a loincloth nailed to a frickin' cross, what more do you have to say? Tim, I'm going to end it there. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and our special guest, Sean Carnage. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and our guest today, and he does live up to his name, Sean Carnage. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Lydia. How are you?
Have we not met before? And if so, not why?
Well, I've definitely been at your shows before. And
sneaky little demon.
I know. And, you and Tim and Weasel, I was in the green room. That was right before lockdown when you were at the Echo. And I think that was the very last big thing that happened before lockdown, which was your show.
Which was the Retrovirus show. Well, nice to re-meet you. So you've known, Weasel was the one who suggested to contact you. And after investigating your resume, my word, I'm surprised we didn't meet when you were 12 years old. I don't think either of us would have turned out any differently, just saying.
Well, I've always thought it was cool that you're from Rochester and I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania. And, where I'm from, Rochester is like a place you aspire to move to,
Well, we're Rust Belt buddies.
Yeah.
So the hierarchy of that stretch of the Rust Belt would be Erie, then Buffalo, then Rochester, or is Erie above Buffalo?
Below. Definitely.
Oh, okay.
Well, the thing is, Pittsburgh is not Erie. Every place is different, but I have to say, living in Pittsburgh for 4 years, I loved it. I love Pennsylvania. I wasn't born there. I can't say the same about Rochester, but I love growing up there. I don't know.
But that's a different Rust. The Great Lakes Rust Belt always feels a little different than like a Pittsburgh Central.
Well, also it was the time that was what made it so cool. Is the time of all those bands coming that were still great in the early 70s when I was a wee little child, still a terrorist.
Hard rock, a lot of hard rock around there.
You originally were drawn to music at a young age, also going to concerts in, I think, was it Cincinnati? Was it Cleveland or Cincinnati? Where'd you go after Erie?
Cleveland. That's another one of those aspirational cities when you're from Erie, PA.
Oh yeah, well, the Mistake by the Lake, it's a thing.
Very rock and roll town. So, but you started to going to underground rock concerts. You were, young rapscallion as well.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It wasn't long after that you decided you had to do more than just go to concerts.
That's right. You've done your research really well. So
I've got I've got it and you right in front of me. I'm studying hard. There's a lot to digest here, and I can swallow deep.
Oh yes,
I've got some good Larry Flynt stories to tell you about you. We'll have to get to that soon.
We're gonna. Trust, I can't wait. But we're gonna start at the beginning here. So let's get back to the Cleveland scene and.
Yeah, Cleveland. That was a major upgrade for my life, right? Moving from Erie, Pennsylvania, where I was this gay kid at the dawn of the AIDS onslaught. In the mid '80s, I loved art. loved music. And, you know, the more I heard about these great Cleveland people from the not so distant past, people like Adele Bertay, who you had on the program recently, you know, Peter Loeffner, Per Ubu, all these things. I was like, man, I want to go to Cleveland. So I went there to study art history, but I, you know, pretty soon thereafter dropped out because the bands that I was hearing down at the Euclid Tavern down at the corner were so, you know, fucking amazing. And so, you know, instead of pursuing a life as an academic, which is what my parents do, you know, I have no interest in that shit.
Hey, how many academics do we need in one freaking family, right?
I always imagine, you know, my heroes were when I was growing up were people like Andy Warhol. Like I wanted to like make the scene, you know, not just be part of it, but actually facilitate making it, right?
Realizes versus theorizing. It's a very different pursuit, and they're both important, but some of us want to make the menu and not be given the menu or read the menu.
Sean, I'm going to have to draw the divide between you and Warhol is that Warhol got a lot of other people to do his work, and he was basically a celebrity or a superstar gatherer. And you are actually the opposite. You did create scenes, and you did want to speak about anything alternative in the underground music, and from there you went on. So as somebody who's got a bit of a prejudice against Warhol's methodologies, I'm going to vote for you instead.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Oh, you're in Cleveland. You're like, okay, academia. And of course that's maybe just intuitive also, like going into academia now. I mean, the golden age of that. I mean, how awful could that be in terms of just what you have to suck up to for no gain? You can't piss one person off in order to get tenured. So that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, well, this was the dawn of that era. This was the dawn of the politically correct,
right?
Kind of late 80s,
yep,
you know, post-structuralist like thing that was happening,
yep.
Identity politics.
So mandatory to rebel and revolt at that point. I love Jesus Lizard. Carry on.
But rebelling.
Exactly.
I mean,
when you're seeing David Yao,
right,
you know, hawk up on the ceiling and then catch it within his own mouth, you know, on the beat in a song. You know, down at the corner, class doesn't seem like very cool after that. So
I describe David Yao as the man, as he's like gum under the table you don't want to touch, but you end up chewing on.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Tell us about the US Rocker magazine, because that was kind of the jumping in period, I'd call it, I guess, for you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I mean, you know, US Rocker is like my big thing. US Rocker was like a 10-year endeavor. It was started by my friend Brenda Mullen, and was a huge collaboration with all these Cleveland scene people. And basically the theory that we had was, you know, what is important is what we say is important, right? Like you can make, I mean, if you wait around for the mainstream to like come by and anoint you and say, you're right, this is great, you're better than everyone else, you were fucking fooling yourself. But, you know, waiting for some outside company to like come in and tell you what is good and what is not is bullshit. And we realized that way back then. I mean, this is long before the internet, but we were like, if we pool our money and we get some local fools to, you know,
advertise,
we can pull this together. And we did 101 issues in 10 years from 1989 to 1990.
Congratulations. Something to be proud of.
People are hungry for that, which they might not even be able, in the light of the internet, find, because there's so much garbage there. And I find things like Forced Exposure, even Maximum Rock and Roll, whatever. It was so important, that kind of journalism, just to present an alternative about what you are experiencing from, you know, your own perspective. So then with the success of the US Rocker magazine, you are a crafty young demon, to establish Invisible City Recording Studio. Now that is not an easy. I'm just gonna start a recording studio. That's pretty big balls, baby. I can't see them now because they're under your table, but
I'm wearing them right here. There you go.
Oh,
well,
no.
I'm wearing mine.
Yes, right. You are.
Look out.
I know. They're so cute. Tell us about that adventure, because that's another like generous act to help the community do stuff which still might be able to help pay the rent.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right, exactly.
150 sessions later, and I'm still taking out the empties to cash in the recycling. You know, But yeah, we did about 150 sessions, 6 years there. We got to work with some really cool people. We got to work with Jimmy Zero from the Dead Boys. He came in and gave the sagest production advice I've ever seen. He came in with this young band called 30 Lincoln, and they were sort of a pop punk band, like, kind of really out of the Jimmy Zero kind of league. And I was thinking, how is this going to work out? And he was very patient with them, and he took them through the whole recording process, and we engineered it. And, he said to them, he's like, yeah, I'm sort of like Dolly Parton. I like to write a song every single day.
Oh my, what a sweetie. What a sweetie.
What a sweetie. Right? He's like, and that's what you need to do to make sure that your muse, that your artistic vitality stays alive. He said, would you like to hear the song that I've written today? And everyone's like, oh my goodness, yes, Jimmy, please play us this amazing song, and he pulls out this tape recorder and he presses play, and it goes,
oh boy.
And it's kind of like farting 25 times in a row, like all during the day.
I mean, there's a lot of crap core music out there, but this is the first I've heard of fart core. But I want to get into then you deciding, why are you just producing as you start to do your own bands? And I didn't get a chance to hear the Divine Invasion, but I have to say I did listen to Razak Solar System. And you know what it reminded me of? One of my favorite bands that everybody fucking hated, even kicked off a Sonic Youth tour. I did a few songs with them. No Trend.
Whoa. That's a deep cut right there.
Now, No Trend.
I don't know this.
I mean, I at least once a month, some No Trend quotes go through mine. Quick, 2 seconds till non-existent. So what the fuck do you want? Or too many fucking humans. You breed like rats and you're no fucking better. 3 members committed suicide of No Trend. The lead singer would piss people. I mean, everybody hated them. I love them. I did a few songs with them. They had their best song was, I think, called Teen Love, about crashing in a car on the way back from the prom. But once I played with them, and Jeff, the lead singer, came out in tin foil with a mirror and held it, and shaving cream, and held it up to the audience face. Quick, what the fuck do you want? Oh, people hate it. They were fucking hated. But some bit of one of the more hard, rash songs in your repertoire that I'm like, No Trend, yeah.
Thank you.
And if you do, you know No Trend?
I only know, that's a name I know, seeing on list of like punk rock names.
All right. Well, I just told you 2 of their best songs. So Too Many Fucking Humans and Quick, 2 seconds till non-existence. Yeah. Well, that's what we're here for, to educate even our guests. What can I say?
I know. That's it. There you go.
So how long? So you started doing music, and what happened with that? Did you tour? Did you just play around,
Yeah, local? We did a little bit. That was getting into that period in the late 90s where
very difficult.
Music started getting really boring. And so that's why playing music happened. It was like, we started with this magazine, and then we drilled down to a studio, and then we went down even further. We're like, we have to make the fucking music because these bands suck. That was when like the emo thing was coming out.
Oh, shoegaze next.
And same time. The genre called alternative.
That was past though. 97, 98, that was already rear view. This was like the emo era. This is when gas was super cheap, like $1.50, and anybody can tour, and everybody was.
Who, by the way, who the fuck were emo? I only know Emo Phillips, the comedian.
Right. I actually don't want to go down the name of these bands because
I would just like to know one, because that's how much they fucking matter culturally. That's what I'm saying. That's the point.
It's like the West Coast and the Midwest kind of owned that crown, right? Is that?
Yeah, they sure did, and that's when we started seeing, other
White
cities.
Boys Wine.
Yeah, crying.
White boys whining.
White wine. Exactly. White wine. White wine. But also kind of in terms of like popular culture, hip hop was kind of just destroying rock at that point in terms of just, yeah. So, I mean, are you going to listen to a white boy whining about his heart being broken at the mall? Or are you going to listen to, you fill in the blanks,
I'm going to listen to Face Mob produced by Scarface. I'm going to listen to, I don't even know what year it came out, but I still ask taxi drivers, Mystical, please.
That's the shit that we were listening to.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait.
Cleveland has got their finger.
Tell me about what rap were you listening to?
At that time, I was listening to stuff like Mystical,
Yeah.
3-6 Mafia,
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Nas, other things like that.
Yeah.
You know, this
Yeah.
was the
Mustache.
era that
And the shit was on
Mac
the
10 handle.
but it's also a lot of the stuff was cutting through to even mainstream radio, and it was way more transgressive and exciting than a kid crying to his mom, "Can I get an ice cream?" You know.
we would sit up in the Invisible City, and they had this thing in Cleveland. You know, Cleveland always had its finger on the pulse. They had this thing called The Box, and it was WRAP TV. It was a UHF station, and they would you could call up and pay money, and they would play a video. So it was mainly urban oriented, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so we would watch things like Cash Money Millionaires.
Yeah.
You know, who I think Manny Fresh, the producer of that.
Oh yes, classic.
Genius.
By the way, you mentioned 6 Mouth. You know, the song I sing almost every day is "Hot Out Here for a Pimp" when you're trying to get the money for the rent. And I do love Hustle and Flow, the film that
yes,
birthed
classic
that song.
Well, Sean, speaking of Manny Fresh, it's digressing a little bit. I haven't heard that guy's name in a while. What the hell's he up to these days?
I have no clue. I mean, I think he's like a, you know, one of the genius producers of the last 25 years. And I can't believe that guy isn't celebrated more. He had like, I mean, it's like, I think he didn't ever want to pay anybody for samples, right? So all that music is 100% his.
Well, absolutely. And that's one of the big reasons why Southern rap blew up, because so much of the New York, LA thing was sample based. And as copyrights and lawyers were clamping down more, all this kind of programmed accompaniment that was really like Florida rap, Atlanta rap, all that stuff was already kind of set in motion to kind of just run. Unless
all music is a fucking sample of something, in my opinion.
Well, that's
you know
a
what
whole
I mean?
other point. That's a whole other point.
To me, it's like everything has some derivation. I mean, even look, I saw an amazing concert last night of total maniacal, murderous improv. With Walter on the drums, playing the most murderous I've ever seen him. And I'm still like, you know what? It still comes from somewhere. Even no matter how original it is, it's like the English language. You can invent new methods of talking, but you don't invent, well, I always invent new words because I'm grammatically ignorant, but you know what I mean? To me, all music is almost all is sampled. And it's, you know, I wish more rappers would have sampled my music. Someone told me Cypress Hill sampled you. I'm like, if they didn't tell me, and I don't think they did. I don't know why they don't.
Back in Cleveland and
ready to leave.
So it's late 90s.
Back in Cleveland, not long. You know, one of the people who kept bopping into town, you know, who I'd known for 5 or 6 years at that point was Weasel. And, you know, visiting Weasel in Chicago and having Weasel come to visit and his friends and having all these bands crash our place, but especially Weasel, just made me kind of think that it was maybe time to leave Cleveland. And I
in spite of the fact that all these cool people were coming there.
Yeah, it was cool.
Right.
And, you know, I love all my Cleveland friends. I'm still in touch. I'm still part of that place in the small way, you know. And,
so you're saying Weasel was an example of just being nomadic and getting out there and doing your thing, or is it like, this guy's showing up at my place too much, I got to get out of here?
No.
I'm teasing.
I move on. I move all the time. I love to move. Go ahead. I love to.
When I met Weasel, he didn't do drugs. He didn't drink beer. He would show up and he would mix spirulina into, like, you know, his soda. It was so gross. He was like, I'm trying to be healthy because I'm on tour. And the next tour, he comes back and he's on LSD and stapling himself to a couch as part of like To Live and Shave in LA. And I was like, oh, we can party with Weasel now.
Oh, wow. It was it To Live and Shave that broke him, or just kind of, did it all kind of just line up in a weird way? Was Nandor on that tour?
Nandor, yes. Nandor.
Please, yeah,
my to LA.
You know, no. Christ on a fucking crutch.
I saw you interviewed him on your show. How did that go?
Teenage motherfucking Jesus.
It was great.
You know, he fears me as he should. Let's go on to LA. So now, come on, you got to move. I mean, I'm a big fan of constant move. You know, move to wherever you have to. Just move occasionally, as often as I want to move every day of my life. So you got to LA. Did you have something out there waiting? You're just like, I'm on to LA. That's it.
Well, I had Nandor. I got really psychedelically high with Nandor, And, I had been reading like the autobiography of Miles Davis, which is one of the best books.
Oh, yes. We've all actually, I think Lydia still has my copy, I think. But
maybe somewhere.
Somewhere in there. Yes.
Have you ever looked at the table of contents there and you look up white people and it says things like co-option of black music, destruction of the planet, blah, blah, and it lists like 45 things.
But you know what's interesting about that? And we can maybe talk about DL culture in the black communities. Miles Davis died of pneumonia, but he died of AIDS, and he was bisexual, but he was pretty much homosexual towards the end of his life, and that was never but that was never broached. And what was, if you read between the lines, was his little lover's quarrel, tension between him and Cecil Taylor, who was completely out of the closet and was a free jazz guy and whatever. But that book was interesting, but he also, he was hiding some shit.
One of my favorite Miles Davis, I mean, there's many, but I really love Sketches of Spain. And when I read that was the hardest record for him to do, which is interesting because it's the simplest. But again, sometimes the simplest things, or what appears to be the simplest, are the hardest. And I liken this to, especially to guitar players, which is why Roland S. Howard or even Robert Quine are so amazing, is they understand, and I'm doing it now orally, the space between breaths is where the power is. And Sketches of Spain has a lot of breath. It's a perfect Sunday album. Well,
it's also if he has such a hate on for white people. I mean, his white best friend Gil Evans was the arranger of that album. So maybe that was a tough one for him.
Hey, one of the best things he ever did was have sex with Betty Davis, and I don't mean the actress, because that would have really fucked him up.
All right. And now you're on psychedelics in Los Angeles. Was it early 2000s, late 90s? I don't know.
Well, I'm still in Cleveland. I'm having a psychedelic discussion with Nandor, and Nandor's he's like, if Miles Davis can do it, you can do it too. He's like, I'm going to LA. You got to meet me out there, man. Or at least that's what I thought he said. I'm not really sure. So I moved to LA.
That might have worked out better for you than it did for him.
What was going on in LA in 2002 when you moved out there? It's a very weird place. People that haven't lived there don't understand it. You can't understand it by visiting it. It's like no other place. No place is like any place anyway, but it's a really freaking weird universe.
It's the Cleveland of mega metropolises.
Interesting.
It's the place that if you live in another city, you love to shit on LA. It's totally accepted to shit on LA.
Where did you first move to? So you got to LA. Where do you land?
I lived in Koreatown, which is a very 21st century place to live. Previous eras of migration might have ended up in Silver Lake or Los Feliz or whatever, but my era moved to Koreatown because that's where the cheap places were. So I'm living this Blade Runner existence with like a taco place, Korean barbecue place, fucking
massage parlor,
like fucking people selling DVDs and junk on the tree lawn right there against the, people face down in the gutter. It's a pretty raw scene when I moved here. And, when I moved here in 2002, the first thing I wanted to do was I'm going to go and find Nandor. I have to go find him because
was he on the curb selling his own DVDs?
Yeah, right, his own exactly. Sort of. Actually,
was he living with Don Bowles at the time?
No,
that was later.
So no, this is how I met Don. I went to look for Nandor, and I went up to Hollywood, and I knocked on this door because I had heard Nandor was staying at this place, and this black blank door, and there was like a sliding keyhole thing there, and it opened up, and there were two very wild eyes they're mascaraed eyes, and they said, "Are you the Gestapo?" And I said, "Me? You're a little young man from Cleveland, Ohio."
You must have had a really good haircut then.
Yeah, I'm not the Gestapo. And all of a sudden the thing slid shut and the door opened, and then he was like, "So come on in." And it's Don Bowles, all like,
flaming as always.
Yes, with his fur hat on. And he invited me in, and he's like, "I just got my White Power records out of storage. You want to help me go through them?" And I'm like, "What?" And I walk into this space that's devoid of furniture. It's like a storefront. It's devoid of furniture. And there is trash, literal trash up to my knees.
You mean other than Don Bowles? Actual trash?
Oh, boy.
And I said,
he's white trash, other trash.
I said, "Is Nandor around?" He said, "Oh, he went for Sundays." And I'm like, "What?" And Don is like showing me, his record collection. And naive me, I brought like a bottle of booze to share with Nandor. Well, little did I know at that point, Nandor was way beyond the booze. We hear a knock on the door. And now I'm seeing it from the other side of the door, right? Don goes to the door and he slides the keyhole. And he's like, "Are you the Gestapo?" And I hear on the other side of the door, "Yes."
Of course.
He shuts the thing, opens the door, and a man who's like 7 foot tall walks in, completely clad in leather with a motorcycle helmet. And he walks in, and there was a girl on the floor under all the trash, and I never even noticed her there. And Pris-like, she like stands up, and wordlessly they walk out the door, and the door shuts. And as soon as it shuts, I hear, "Oh, she's mine. She's mine." And I look down, and there's Nandor also in the trash, which I hadn't noticed up to that point. Face down in the trash.
Complete sense to me.
I still don't know what happened there.
Complete sense. So, all right, you're in LA, scooping trash, not even off the sidewalk, off the place you're visiting. And how do you end up working for Larry Flynt and Flynt Productions then? I mean, that's a big jump.
You know how it is. Like you're from the Rust Belt, Lydia. You know, you've got to keep moving. You got to keep working. You got to keep a little bit of cash coming in, but you gotta have fun.
We're jugglers. Sean, you and I are jugglers in the extreme.
You know, I responded to this ad in the LA Times, and it was like written in big print. And this is already the era where there are not that many ads in the paper anymore.
Right.
So this is pretty exceptional. It says, "Gentleman's Magazine needs an assistant. Start tomorrow." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I'm like, I wonder if I'll get this, because this sounds totally like me. And I'm hoping that it's Men, Freshmen, or Unzipped Magazine, my favorite gay magazines. But let's just see who it is. And the next,
because you didn't see any ads that said musicians, producers, poets, weirdos wanted, did you? No, you did not, because they don't exist.
They don't exist. This was an anomaly. And I thought, well, you know, it's LA. There are going to be 10,000 people going for this job. You know, I can't even get a job at a coffee house on part-time because there's so many people fighting for these jobs. But I walk in and I was the only applicant, and I filled out the paperwork, and they didn't even interview me. And they said, "When can you start?" And I said, "Great. I just don't know who I'm working for." And they're like, "Oh, Larry Flynt." I'm like, oh my God.
Now, I have to say, the only man I've ever voted for, Larry Flynt, and people might not understand, they might want to come down on me, but I have to say, Larry Flynt fought for fucking freedom. Might have been an asshole. It's still hardcore pornography. He went after people who were sex hypocrites and paid to investigate. And I have to say, that infamous cover of a woman in a meat grinder is, you can take it any way you want, but to me, that was a depiction of how women are really presented in this fucking country. So he's kind of a conundrum, because fights for freedom, hardcore pornography, which, look, to me, if you don't want to see it, don't fucking look at it. That's my opinion. And nobody's forcing people. It's not that there isn't pressure to be sexualized as women, but nobody forces anybody to pose for a dirty magazine, especially in that period. They're lining up, you know, out of vanity and what the fuck ever promotion. I have to say, I was a huge fan of some of Larry Flynt's policies. Now, I didn't work for him, and not all of them, but on what I've just said, he took a bullet for freedom. And he is a real American, which is not to say I like real Americans. I'm just saying he is a real one. Now,
when you got the gig, did you bro down on this kind of Ohio expat thing? Because he's from Ohio.
Another Rust Belt baby.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I walked in there on the first day, and he said, "Hey," I said, "Hey, I'm Sean. I'm your new assistant." And he said, "Oh, that's nice. Where are you from?" And I said, "Cleveland." He's like, "Oh, that's a good place to be from."
Because where was Flint? Where was he from?
Was he Columbus?
Cincinnati.
Oh, Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, us Rust Belt babies, there's just something about us. It's so true.
Cincinnati's Larry Flynt and Bootsy Collins. Not so bad, considering how shitty that town is.
I never thought of it like that. Yeah. So, yeah, but with the accent on the from, you know, Mr. Flynt had definitively moved on. He was very LA.
He was already in a wheelchair by now, was he?
Already in a wheelchair. He, you know, this is, you know, I was so into the People versus Larry Flynt when I was doing US Rocker. I even took my mom to see that movie. And like, you know, like I was on drugs back then, so who knows? But like, you know, even she thought that was cool. I mean, everybody loves Larry Flynt. He's like amazing. The thing is, though, they don't tell you
They don't work for him.
Yeah. Well, also he never got off drugs. And so
why should he? He's in a fucking wheelchair. I mean, I'm ready to become a morphine addict if they would just supply me with morphine. I'm old enough. Give me a break. I'm sick of pain. I don't, the opioids don't work, but maybe the real morphine would. I'm just saying.
The movie implies he did get off of drugs.
He did. Yeah, in the movie, yeah.
And was that his executive pull if it wasn't the truth? He's like, I want society to think I got off of drugs, or was that just a false representation on its own?
I have no idea. I wasn't around during that period, but I do know that, he never got off drugs. And
right.
So he,
and again, why should he?
Why should he? Right.
He's in fucking agony.
He says that it feels like his legs are in boiling water 100% of the time.
And
why
phantom pain.
Hang on. Why wouldn't they give him something that really stopped the pain instead of something that they're making the money on? What drug was he on? Do you know?
He married Liz Flynt, who was his nurse, and they would wheel him to a back room, and he'd come out and he'd be very happy. And sometimes he'd be very confused, but generally pretty happy. Sometimes though, I would walk in and he would be in agony, and he thought a lot about the past, and I would walk in there and he would be like, my father, just like sobbing on like a pile
somebody
of
that
format.
let me just cut in. Somebody that is not in chronic pain, extreme pain, has no fucking idea the delirium it can cause. They just don't know. And the thing is, they could make better drugs as opposed to the crap opioids that they've been handing out like fucking Pez candies for the last few years. They could make better drugs to relieve the pain, but they don't want to relieve the pain. They want to keep you in pain. They want to keep you in pain until you die. They want to charge you as much as possible, and they want to profit off the fucking pills. It's pathetic. People are in fucking pain.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty serious stuff. But anyway, we developed a really good rapport. He called me the young lion of porn, and they had just fired the previous regime, which maybe you knew them, Lydia. They were headed up by Alan McDonnell.
I only knew him in passing because he solicited some of my pieces, and actually the one piece I'm very proud that Hustler printed is I always proposed, and so were other people, but I'm the only one that did it, to write an article on Dominic Strauss-Kahn, right? The Kahn of the World Bank, who raped a woman, and many women, a big scandal raping a woman in a hotel in Times Square. So I wrote this piece because my only job outside of so-called art or sex art was as a hotel maid. So I wrote a piece based on the fact, what if I answered the door that spring morning to Dominic Strauss-Kahn? Correct. And what would have happened? Because I would not be the one to be raped. And somebody, it wasn't Alan McDonnell, was whoever came after him, I think, saw me read this piece and then solicited it for Hustler and printed pictures of Dominic Strauss-Kahn. I was so proud that they did that because nobody else wrote about this. So my version was, look, if I'm charging people money for sex, at least I'm not making the whole world into a fucking John like Dominic Strauss-Kahn. It's a great piece. It's called It Could Have Been Me.
Could have been me. Oh,
I think I wish it would have been me. Yeah, I'm going to send it to you. They did a great job laying it out, I have to say. And for that, I have to respect Hustler, because this was not a pretty piece. And it went between me being the maid and me being a political assailant against Dominic Strauss-Kahn.
His wife is the one that pulled the strings to kind of get him ushered out of the country before shit really hit the fan. And she was kind of like a French Ghislaine Maxwell, it turns out. I mean, she knows all the shit that he was up to.
So, Sean, so you're working for Larry Flynt. What exactly were your duties as assistant at early stages? Because you worked for 15 years there. You also did other things.
5 years.
Oh, 5 years. Okay.
5 years. That's all I could take. My first duty involved, my story I want to tell you about you, because there's no way you would know this. Yes, that's right. It's a Larry Flynt Lydia lunch story.
Whoa!
We got some juice here, folks.
That's right. So, the old regime was gone. But Larry, he's a little controlling. He wants to see what they were doing. And so he's instructed that the previous editors, all his materials be put on his desk.
Wow.
And so my job as assistant was to each day, his secretary said, every day, just take more stuff off and put it in the trash pile behind his desk. And if he wants anything, he'll pick it out and just, and then when we get to the bottom of it, we'll be done. Right. And so I'm going through that stuff on his desk, and I'm taking stuff and putting in the trash. And there's this magazine featuring Lydia Lunch. I'm like, what
magazine?
I opened it
Hustler?
up, and it was you on like a motorcycle, and you're like kicking back like on a motorcycle or something like that. Do you know this photo? This black and white photo?
I don't remember I know the photo. I don't remember what it relates to as far as the magazine. Carry on.
It was not in Hustler. It was some other magazine.
Okay, yeah,
Whoa.
right,
It was another
right.
magazine.
Well, I mean, I used to have a motorcycle in my living room when I lived with Marty Nation. That's just because that's what it was.
There's some pretty sexy photos of you, Lydia. And it was, and unlike the other magazines and things in the pile, this is sort of a mishmash of stuff, but like it was open to that one page and like folded over. And I was looking at it, like typical thing, like, I don't look out for the pictures, I read for the articles, but I actually saw this and I was like, I actually want to read this. So
what was it?
So I put it aside in the trash pile, but kind of on the top, right? Because I knew I was going to snag it later.
Right.
And I come in the next morning, and Mr. Flynt is not that mobile, and he had taken it from the trash pile, or someone had, and they had put it back on his desk. I was like, motherfuck, I want that one. So I put more stuff from his desk on the trash pile, and I put that one back to the trash pile, and I sat it on top. Next day, same story.
Whoa.
It's back on his desk. It's back on his desk. Lydia Lunch in all her glory, like this, leaning back on this motorcycle.
Looking hot.
Looking really smoking.
But what was the article that you had to read?
I don't know. I never got to read it.
Because he kept it.
I said, Mr. Flynt, finally I got the courage, because I'm still like, I've got a little angle here. I want it, right? I said to him, Mr. Flynt, is there a reason you keep putting this Lydia Lunch magazine back over on your desk? And he turned to me and he's like, she reminds me of my wife, Alfie.
Oh,
yeah.
The nurse or?
No, the one that Courtney Love plays in the movie.
Well, you know what? Let's put that in perspective.
Yeah.
But not the character, not Courtney Love. We're not talking about her.
I know,
but
I
it's
know.
funny. It's funny, exactly.
It is funny because, I mean, if she only would have really learned from me, she'd have done more than 2 albums in a 25-year fucking career, and they wouldn't have been written by her fucking husband. I'm just saying. Anyway, well, that's, it's interesting. You never know who knows you or how they know you or why they know you. And just one example that it reminds me of is I photographed Winona Ryder for that. The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things. And Winona Ryder's godfather is Timothy Leary. And she said to me, he wanted to meet you on his deathbed. I go, he didn't tell me that. How does Timothy Leary know the fuck? Probably from Robert Williams. I have no idea. You never know who knows you. You don't know who they know. And the bigger question is, you think you know me? You don't fucking know me. You don't fucking know me. You don't even know what I want you to know. Whatever. So
well,
5 years.
He took that home. I never got to read the article. I never knew what it was.
Well, I mean, since he was paralyzed from the waist down, I would say I wish he jerked off on that picture, but I'm sure he couldn't. But sad for him, I guess, not me. So, all right, Larry Flynt, enough of that. Working for a demented, drug-addled cripple who collects pictures of me. I love it.
You reminded him of his dead wife. How sexy is that, right?
Very sexy. I mean, usually I want other people's wives to die, so it kind of makes sense. So, really, why the fuck do you have a wife? That's what I always say. Anyway, so now you're back in production and in your own production in LA, and you actually get voted. I have to find this one again. What, as like doing the best independent promotion in LA? Wait, what's this all about? What are you doing next?
So Larry Flynt, we created this genre called alt porn, which was like girls with tattoos, basically women represented exactly how they are. But
Johanna Angel and all that. I know all about that scene. Sure. Because it was a opposition to fake tits and blonde hair. I mean, totally. Had to be done.
Larry's still in there airbrushing the tattoos off the girls and fixing them up, and everything he used to stand for is not what he currently stands for, and it's really frustrating, and I don't want to deal with that. And I'm seeing all these great bands, and I'm like, I need to get out of this porn thing. This is not how I ever saw my life going. I like working for magazines, but I don't want to be a pornographer.
And then you really become one.
I know. And then I really became one, but I just couldn't shake music. And so I started promoting my own shows. And, I was really influenced by people like Vaginal Cream Davis and stuff.
Who worked with Ron Athey all the time. Yes. Yeah. And for anybody who doesn't know, who Vaginal Cream Davis is, like a 6'5" black drag queen of extreme nature. And yeah, salons, because I also did, Vaginal Davis and I shared a club, the Parlor in LA, where she would do her thing. And then I would do the Unhappy Hour, bringing a lot of people to the spoken word stage.
I saw the tail end of that. That was still going on a little bit when I got there, and I would always go to the Parlor Club, and they actually gave me MVP because I never missed a night for like a year. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be just like what you were doing. And it didn't turn out that way though. It was, it was really hard to get adults to come to some shitty ass, all ages warehouse space downtown.
That's why the Parlor was great. Bring them to a nice club. They might come.
Exactly. But I didn't have those connections. So here I was. And so, I turned back to what I knew, which was punk rock bands and underground bands. And, I started booking the week that I left Flint it was August 1st, 2005. And I didn't stop till 2014. I booked over 500 Monday shows in a row.
And where at all different kinds of places? What places?
Different kinds. Yeah, mainly at this place, Il Corral in the beginning, and then at the Smell, and then a place called Perispace, mainly at this place called Perispace. So yeah, I did that for a decade.
And who wants a Monday night except for you or me? I prefer Sunday nights, but you know what I'm saying?
Monday nights in LA became a thing. I mean, in a weird way, that was like, that's when you get the bigger crowds.
Well, who wants to be there on the freaking weekends? I mean,
I always said that the weekends are for amateurs, man. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's when the real people who know how to party come out.
And then you were named the best experimental music promoter by LA Weekly, which Ron Athey also used to work for. This is all we always talk about the connective tissues here, but we are all somehow weirdly, as weirdos, connected.
When you did the child abuse show, what year was that? That was 2016.
That was actually after that. That's after I stopped promoting.
Yeah, because you did, that was like a favor to me or something. Was it a one-off or something? Because I was like, getting good.
I didn't want it to be a one-off, but it ended up being a one-off. That was my pleasure. That was that was a cool show. That was like my dream show. Finally, we were in the neighborhood back where Lydia was. We were back near the Parlor Club. We were on Fairfax, right on the street. We were in an adult neighborhood, and like where you could come in and you had that sort of activity on the street, right off Melrose. And I really had high hopes for that place, but it wasn't to be.
So then you decided, well, what next to conquer? We're very much alike in this manner. We're jugglers.
I wish.
How about some documentaries?
I've always thought.
How about 29 mini documentaries to start with in 2010? How about that?
Oh yeah. Whoa. You have done your research. Yeah.
I got your resume right up on my left eye.
So yeah, I started making movies. So again, it goes back to this Warhol thing, which I know you're not a big fan of Warhol, but I've always liked scenes that sort of generate their own archives, right? They're like self-archival.
I am an archivist. Yeah. For sure.
What did you think have you always thought of yourself as an archivist?
I knew from the age of 17, I had to document everything, and I did. And I got everything recorded. And to me, documentation was the most important thing, because I didn't know how long this would be going on for. 2 years, 2 months, 20 years, 2 centuries, who the fuck knows? I just knew from an early age I had to document shit that I did. And I did it.
And what do you do? What do you do with that stuff?
I sold it to NYU, and I own the copyright on everything. That's what I fucking do.
Wow.
They only own the fucking. They only own the fucking physical shit.
Yeah,
I own
the
the
analog,
on everything.
Wow,
Trying to sell that
so
now.
Cool.
Yeah.
What year did you do that?
Just like 2 years ago. Yeah, recently.
Wow.
So they're there, and then the reason is because they were going to do a digital museum of my shit so that anybody anywhere can go for free and go, 1981, what was going on? 19, whatever. I mean, from 77 forward. I don't think they're finished. It's going to take them years because, I mean, DVDs, mini discs, all formats of performances, writing, blah, blah. But they have begun doing their digital museum of the Lydian factor. Yeah.
There's a part of my life when I did not, I knew I was archiving, but I did not want to be known as an archivist, because to me that puts me outside of what's happening. And like,
no, it puts you very much deeply inside of what's happening because you're the one who has the knowledge to preserve it for posterity. It actually puts you above, in my opinion.
I love hearing this because this makes me feel very positive about this.
Juicy inside.
Juicy, yes, wet and juicy.
All right, so you started doing these mini documentaries, including, I know that Tim's gonna love this, Ronnie James Dio, not my favorite, but however.
Well, he's not my favorite, but he's a heavy metal singing legend. Maybe one the top 3, I don't know, top 4 biggest singing legend. I mean, in that style of heavy metal singing, that kind of.
What made you focus on him?
Oh, I've always liked him. That was like the U.S. rocker thing going full circle, you know. I mean,
well, he's Rust Belt too. He's Rust Belt too. He's Rochester, right? Or no? Is he? No, Utica. I think he's Utica. It doesn't matter.
He could be. He is from somewhere in New York State.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, he's a guy. I mean, like Weasel and I, we used to get into stuff like Von Elmo and stuff like that. You know?
I
played with him. Weasel and I played with him.
Oh God, nobody knows where he is and nobody cares. That's
well,
you take one turn and you're Von Elmo, and you take the other turn and you're Ronnie James Dio. You know,
and I go right down the fucking center lane and avoid both of them. Go ahead.
Well, anyway, so I
actually saw Von Elmo play, but
you saw.
I played with Von Elmo.
Yeah, I wouldn't brag about that if I were you.
I'm proud of it. I mean,
they're both things you've done.
They're both midgets. They're both midgets. They're both like 5'2" or 5'3". Besides what?
Hey, I'm not much taller, but
these guys.
I wear high heels. They don't. All right, carry on.
In terms of two trajectories, it's kind of interesting because Dio, of course, he was a lot older than those guys and was in those kind of Italian doo-wop bands before he discovered heavy metal. Marty Rev is into all that stuff too. It's like, what direction, how do you go from that into what?
Lydia's cringing.
They were though. They're into all that stuff.
I've always loved Dio. He's one of these weird singers that, like, it's such a faux pas. I don't know. I think it's a faux pas. Like when you're a singer, to like extend your lyrics from song to song to song. Like he recycles his own lyrics.
Yes.
Isn't that kind of bad form? But he does it. He's shameless about it.
No, heavy metal has a history. Iron Maiden, this band with Iron Maiden, the album with Iron Maiden, the song. That's like another thing where you have like songs and then deicide. It's a whole history of like just recycling in heavy metal on these like themes that make it more dramatic and more epic.
By the way, I guess Sean, you haven't.
Is it laziness or is it just like making it more epic?
I guess you haven't heard my version of War Pigs where Weasel plays everything, but I'll send it to you gladly. Now that's topping everybody else because this subject must go on because we only have so much time. So, now you're doing
about Dio, right? And the audience, at Dio's funeral was just unbelievable, and it was really my tribute to Heavy Metal Parking Lot, which is that classic video, and it was also probably like, if you look at the people in that video, that's like, Donald Trump 2024 right there. It's like, it was kind of that crowd, and they were really jovial that day though, which was weird because it was a funeral, but I filmed them, and it's been my most successful movie that I've made. It's over 1.5 million views on YouTube.
Holy motherfucker. I hope you get a penny a view.
I get a penny once in a while. I know.
Anyway,
real quickly, Rob Halford or Ronnie James Dio? Who do you pick?
Ooh, that's tough. Ooh. Oh man, I think I would go for Dio, but I don't want to make that choice, man.
No, you don't have to. That was mean of me.
I love doing big stuff. So I did 40 bands, 80 minutes. I'm like, we can do 40 bands on one stage in one night and film it and have it be like Erga Music War. these were other things that I used to get into with like Weasel and stuff like that, like talk about these things. And, I've been watching that my whole life, and that was really fun and a big success. And then we did this thing called LA Lottery League, where we got artists and musicians together and put them in new combinations, and they played a show like that. And that was an incredible success. And, just these sort of fun, like big, like large format projects, I really, really like. It's almost like systems music. It's like you create a mechanism, and then it's the opposite of Larry Flynt. Instead of controlling and airbrushing the girl to within an inch of her life,
you allow
people. You create
allow
a structure.
Right.
Yes, it's all about facilitating things rather than like clamping down on details.
Well, that's the way I function as well, as Tim will attest to. I mean, I want to give the opportunity. I don't want to micromanage anything except the details, not the music, not the creativity. And that's a very important thing. There's another level we connect on. You see this beam of light, like it's trying to pierce my
pussy? Look at that. It's like cosmic.
It's going right to my, what?
But it makes sense, Sean, that, I mean, it kind of ties in all your things, like the hyper presence of just realizing things in real time, where there's actually just pragmatism, where you can't sit there and airbrush things. And you, as a former promoter and musician, it kind of brings the real time with just your other kind of, artistic expression. It kind of brings everything together, I would assume, just based on your history, like all in one. And that's
now the awards start coming in hard and heavy, at least one of them, for your production of digital apps, videos, websites, experiences. I mean, you still get the Cannes, as I like to say, the Cannes Golden Lion Award, which is pretty fucking prestigious, my friend.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We got to go to Cannes.
Festival.
We got to go to Cannes. My moment of my greatest achievement was also my personal total destruction and ruin. I had gotten really involved in like the drug and sex scene here, and that was also around the time.
How could you not?
I know, it's like a delicious buffet here in LA, and so that's how around the time that I just kind of spun out of control, literally.
Well, you gotta dip down every now. I mean, look, it's good for you. It's good for people to actually fall into a hole and be able to climb back out. You got to do it. Get it over. It is, and I will go to my grave not having any regrets, because I fucking did it. Because you've already been there. You've already dug your own fucking grave, crawled out of it, and here you are now.
Yeah.
Is it that you realize all these kind of dark and dirty fantasies and you're like, I'm done, or are you actually at a point where like there's almost a gun to your head, like, metaphorically, like, if I don't get out of this shit right now, I'm fucked? Or both?
I grew up in kind of a semi-broken home, and I know you guys can probably relate to this, or Lydia, you can, but like, my father was like a really bad person, like did actual bad things and went to jail and stuff. And when I reached the point where, but on the other hand, I'm somebody who idolizes William Burroughs, and I want to be out there. I want to be where sex and drugs and art come together. I want to be at that spot. But when I somehow, it's a very tiny apex where that comes together. And if you are just a little off, all of a sudden
you go down the wrong way. Yeah.
I was hanging out with people who, they were not edgy artists anymore. I was hanging out with people who were actually doing bad things. And I was like, what's the difference between them and like this fucking
your
shit
dad?
That my father put my mother and my sister and my family through, what is the difference here? And I just can't live with myself like that.
Well, sometimes you have to repeat the sins of the parents to get over being abused by them any further. You become what you hate until you become what you fucking love. And so do other people.
So when did you go sober? It was shortly after, I think I saw you with the child abuse show, right?
Yeah, it's around that time.
Or right around that time. Yeah.
2017. So, it's been kind of an interesting thing. And then this pandemic struck. So I'm very in archivist mode right now. I'm like learning.
Very important, Sean. Very important.
Thank you.
You've done it. So now maybe organize. It's very important. Tell us about it.
So, one of the things that was really important to do was to get all these old videos online, to get all the US rockers online. You know, these are things that had never been online. And I talk with my best friend through all this, Brett Berg. He runs the Museum of Home Video, and you know, he's doing the same thing with video. I'm trying to do this with things like US Rocker and also this TV show I worked on called The Queer Edge with Jackie Jett and Sandra Bernhard. I was a producer on this show, and Jackie Jett died of a heart attack in 2015. And, you know, no one has put his shows up online. And so between US Rocker and Queer Edge and all my own shows,
to do. You got a lot of work to do.
I know.
You were doing that during the pandemic.
You know, all these people fucking complaining about masks, about vaccines, all this bullshit.
I had a good year.
I had a great year. The pandemic was great.
Fabulous year.
When you're an artist and something like a worldwide pandemic happens, it's like, oh yes,
almost
more time to work.
Almost all artists in one form or another have gone through a pandemic of either a moral, a philosophical, a political, or a physical problem. So we're kind of more ready for it. We're kind of more built for that kind of abuse because we live in it anyway. We know it's coming. We've been through it, and we're not going to stop just because can't leave the fucking house without a mask. Give me a fucking break.
That's right. That's right. I knew you would understand.
Of course I do. Sean, we may have met briefly by vision backstage at the Echo. I know you, my friend.
I can feel it.
Can you?
I can feel it burning in my eyes.
Well, that backstage that backstage was interesting because that one woman she was asked, well, Nandor actually guided her out the door, and she snuck in by name dropping me, so that's why I'm a little pissed about it, because like, who the fuck is this person? Crazy. But you know, this is where I'm going. There was like a whole blowout, and basically, because I told her, like, you better get out now because it's gonna backfire. Like,
just some wild chick that wanted negative attention because she wouldn't get any other kind unless it was negative.
Eventually,
that's what it was.
It exploded. Word, because I had to go back. I ran into some of the people from the Echo the next night. Word was she came back to the Echo with a knife about.
Which I mean, by the way,
half hour later,
a knife. Please. Grow up.
Didn't matter. It wasn't going to happen.
All right. Anyway, you know what? We're wrapping this up because I don't even know what more we could discuss other than the fact that this is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunchtimdahl, Sean Carnage. If you don't know, this only scratches the surface of the blister of art, documentation, and carnage he has left on this planet, which now he is in the process of accumulating all in one place. And I hope charging a small subscription fee for, because you deserve it. You deserve all you can get, my friend.
Anything you want to plug right now that you haven't talked about?
Yeah, my website, seancarnage.com. It's the best way to go and find out about all this stuff. You know, it's like lots of stories and lots of things to see and hear about some pretty cool people over almost 30-year time span now.
I really respect what you've accomplished, my friend, and I can't wait to see you at the end of November.
Yeah,
thank you, Lydia. Soon. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Really,
Tim.
I'm very impressed because, you know, there are some of us that are, I wouldn't call us overachievers because it's not like we ever think, It's just we have the energy to document and need to and encourage other people, perform, document, showcase, play music with. And there are some of us out there, and it's important that we keep doing what we do. And that's why we present to you the Lydian Spin with Sean Carnage. Never a man more appropriately named.